What is up, guys? Welcome to the Diff podcast once again. A little bit different this time. If you guys have been listening for the past few episodes, today we finally have our very first guest. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and so I'm going to go ahead and introduce him here. For you guys that don't know, we've got a real superstar in store for you guys today. He is a superstar in the esports universe. This guy's not just a gaming genius, of course, but he's also he's rocking it with the writing and content creation with One Esports. He jams on the guitar. I don't know what else he doesn't do. Not only that, but he also hosts his own podcast, by the way. You should check it out. I'm sure he might plug it once or twice along the way. But again, there's one more thing. You've probably heard this before too. He's probably the wealthiest caster among everybody in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce my good friend, and you probably know him, maybe you don't, but his name is Caisam Wolf Nopueto.
Hello.
Welcome.
All right. We got to stop with the wealthiest thing, you know.
Is it? Do we though?
That's a separate podcast on its own.
There's an origin story there somewhere.
There is. It started. This will take very long time for me to explain it. But basically, it started with my workmates in Onyx, and I'll have you know, for all of the esports fans out there, the former coach of Onyx Philippines, which is Coach Eb, now part of Onyx in Indonesia, he started this. Is it a gag or something?
He's the one that started it?
He's the one that started.
I didn't know it was Coach Eb.
It was Coach Eb, and and if you know that guy's a massive troll. Shoutouts to Coach Eb.
Shout out to Coach Eb.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Well, Wolf, it's great to have you. I don't want to call you Caisam because casters don't call each other by their first names.
Very rarely.
But for those of you guys that are watching this for the first time and you're not super familiar with esports, that's where we met was esports for casting for MLBB. But Wolf's experience casting goes way back.
Yeah.
A lot further than mine. I've been casting now. This is my third year for you guys that are familiar with that. Wolf, I want to go ahead and take it back because, like I said, some people are not going to know who you are, as famous as you are. But can you at least take us through how you got to where you are today? And I don't mean like childhood and everything like that, sure. But go ahead and start with exactly how you ended up here in esports and everything else.
Okay, so it dates back in around maybe 2012, where I first got into the ICU because of
ICU?
The intensive care unit.
Oh, actually, the ICU.
Actual ICU, dude. It's not a university.
I thought you were talking about you. Okay, the actual ICU.
When I got hospitalized, and then after getting out of the hospital, I cannot go back to studying just because it was a severe condition for me back then. For those who don't know, I was diagnosed with lupus, right? Maybe that's a topic for a different part of this podcast, but basically I cannot go to school. Happened, and back then a friend of mine sent me this beta key for Dota 2. I don't know if you're aware of that. Yeah, but that was
I remember
a massive
beta
honor.
keys.
Beta keys it's massive. Like you have to go to a black market just to get one, right?
Yeah.
And then this friend of mine, because I think he felt that I deserved it because I'm not doing anything, and like he's a little bit, he's like, oh, poor you.
Yeah, he felt sorry for you.
I feel sorry for you. Get a beta key. But
you played Dota 1
way before that. During my high school days, and I stopped because I had to be I had to focus on studying. And I don't have a PC back then. I only got the.
You went to the PC shops.
Yeah, I went to the PC shops.
That's if you're a Filipino, man.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
and
Filipino gamer starts like
that.
The
funny thing is, my first experience with that, my Filipino cousins, I am half Filipino, right? Yeah. But when I came to the Philippines for the first time, I was 13. Dude, that was my first culture shock.
You went to a PC shop?
I went to a PC shop.
That's okay.
That was my first culture shock. My cousins brought me there. My cousins were younger than me, but they brought me there, and this was just near like a PC shop somewhere in Las Piñas.
Yeah.
And they brought me there, and everybody at that time was playing Dota 1, Counter-Strike, and Battle Realms.
Yeah,
I think it was.
Yeah, Battle Realms, dude.
And so that's where I first fell in love with Counter-Strike.
Yeah. So there's that. So around like I think I was hospitalized around 2012. That was when they did diagnose it, because I was already sick since '08, '07, '08.
Oh
And I
wow.
was diagnosed for a different, I was misdiagnosed actually, because all the check boxes were ticked anyways. But the fact that I've been shot with penicillin every day for like no every month for almost 5 years, and then the doctor said you should be well by now because of how much penicillin you
Yeah.
have in your system. But I wasn't, and I was actually in the ICU. So they ran
Wow.
tests again, and I was in denial. Like obviously when I heard that I had lupus, because
How old were you at
so
this
that
time?
was 2012. That was probably 1918. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And then because I cannot go to school, I was just playing Dota 2 online. And then come 2013, so I was playing like months now with the beta key with my friends, and obviously like I like you eventually get very analytic about it because you start to get good. Then I saw free to play, and I watch TI3. And
That
then
was the Free to Play was the
documentary.
documentary, right?
Exactly.
I watched that as well. And I
Yeah.
didn't even play Dota 2.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's so well made that even when you're not a fan of Dota or Dota 2, you get you really become a big fan of the game. But the long story short, because I saw the casters, I didn't know that there was actually a commentary thing, that there were casters for a game, that esports even existed. I didn't know that because I was just playing. Then they were, there was a playback, because I'm a sports fan, and their play-by-play was very entertaining, especially Toby one. So I really got into that. But most importantly, the analysis, especially with Merlini. For those who know, Merlini is really my idol back then. He guessed almost all of the heroes that will be picked, and that amazed me. That same day, I told to myself, I'm gonna be like that sometime.
And you are.
And now, well, now with Dota 2, but esports in general.
Yeah.
Well, not internationally. That's what I meant. So, fast forward 2012, right? And then 2013 was when I said, I told myself I want to be a caster. It took a while. I took back then work from home jobs weren't a thing. But if you're a writer,
Yeah.
because I was a writer ever since I was in elementary, I found an opportunity to be a contributing writer for Mineski.net. Then eventually I got accepted, spent about maybe 2 years just doing it while studying. Well, not actually studying, but I was taking a few units, maybe one or two subjects.
So you
because
were
that's
like part-time college?
yeah, because I stopped for about 2 years. And then
Okay.
when I was trying to get back, I thought I could do it, but my body just can't.
Yeah.
So I was just stuck at home. And while I was doing that, I thought that I want to earn money, basically. So fortunately, I got into GG Network, which is another. This was the first time that I actually got paid for writing about esports, right? But then, since I still have my friends with Mineski, they in face. I was still friends on Facebook. They announced that they wanted auditions. This was 2016 December,
Okay.
and that's
The audition was for casting?
for
or?
casting, right?
Okay.
Then because that day they have a coverage for the Boston Major in 2016. This was December. I asked my friends who still are working for Mineski, like, hey, do you still have other auditions? And then imagine this. This was the conversation happened around 8 p.m. 8 p.m. that day. And Boston Major obviously is in US time. The guy told me, yes, we do. Meet me at 10:30 p.m. at LRT station. This LRT station. That was when the LRT stations closed, actually.
Yeah.
So 10:30. The coverage starts around 11ish.
So you had to go somewhere.
Yeah, I had to
Like-
go somewhere.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
there's
went,
no casting from home.
No,
at
no
this
casting from
point-
home, for sure.
At this point.
So I went to it was the Cubao station, and yeah, he brought me there. They were already the coverage already started. There was already a caster casting. His name is Denki. He's alone, and then I again, this was already live.
Yeah,
Alright?
yeah.
Was walking to along the hallway to the casting studio. The door was open. My guy says, "Hey, this guy wants to audition." The guy who's Denki, who was live broadcasting
Live
it.
broadcasting. Okay.
Saw it. This is like, oh really? You want to audition? Okay, come on, sit down.
So
And
your audition was a live broadcast.
I audition was a live broadcast, and it was one of my proudest moments because you know what you do when you want something, you rehearse it while you were taking a shower.
Yeah.
You rehearse it while you're taking a poop.
Taking
you're
a poop.
rehearsing it
Yep.
like on
While you're cooking anything.
cooking, or when you're doing anything, like you're on the way to school or whatever, you're rehearsing it. And then that moment, he asked me a very difficult question back then, which was not nice. Now that I think about it,
What's the question?
it was like, why do you think? Because PA was all of a sudden picked up. It was very off meta that game, and I told them like, okay, because when I looked at the opposite side, all of their core heroes were right clickers. So that was like Medusa and Drow Ranger, and I told them like, and PA was off meta, and I told them like, oh, PA has mischance basically, which kind of destroys the Medusa and the Drow.
Okay.
And that's exactly what happened afterwards, and yeah, they were impressed about the.
So right after that,
right after that,
you got hired.
Yeah, I thought afterwards, like the director high-fived me and just like, oh, that's nice. And imagine we ended the broadcast around what 12 p.m. following day, because it's like, or maybe like 10 a.m.
Because of the opposite time zone.
Opposite time zone. And they basically said, yeah, see you tomorrow, which is, I got the call back afterwards, so it's great.
There it is.
There it is.
So that is the start
The start.
of your casting career.
That's right.
And for those that don't know, he is probably one of the most renowned analysts.
Come on.
No, it's true, right?
Thank
One of the
you.
most renowned analysts. And it's funny because you talk about how you wanted to, be like, I forgot the name, the guy. Merlini.
Yeah.
Where you were basically just kind of predicting a draft, and that's something that obviously you still do. And I think a lot of viewers that are familiar with you, that's something they like watching from all analysts. But specifically, you hear this a lot of time with you and how you, especially when you're on the English broadcast, right? Like people love to see that. And that takes obviously a big skill. And this also led you to, doing more with the whole analyst thing. Like
That's
you
right.
have a whole thing you were working on for such a long time.
Exactly. The app, right?
The app.
Yeah. I guess, I gotta say, like, obviously the directors and my co-casters back then during my audition, they liked it. But generally, the people didn't. Like, the viewers didn't. They didn't really appreciate it because
Like
I was
they didn't
boring.
understand it, or
No, because I was boring. Like,
it was boring.
No, obviously, all of the techniques that I have right now as an analyst to make it more entertaining wasn't there at the start.
Like you were boring.
I was boring. Exactly. I was literally like that. So I don't have the techniques yet. I just have the knowledge back then. So that's something that I had to develop along the way. That's why I felt like the reason why I became the analyst that I am right now was because of many I guess mistakes that I did before, or at least many improvements that had to happen, many feedbacks, many maybe I'd call it bashing, but obviously it's like constructive criticism from the people, and then I developed it by making content as well. And this is something that I always tell aspiring analysts: make content, dudes, because doing content kind of gives you the practice that you need.
You and it's funny because you do that even with One Esports now. Like you are, making content for certain strategies or heroes popping up. And I know you've experienced this in a couple different games. Actually, it's just not MLBB. Right. You also cast Valorant. You did Dota 2 even. You did Dota 2 way back. And so to tie this into the previous episode here on the Built Diff podcast, it was all about risks and then failures and taking the lessons learned from that. So that's one thing that I really wanted to ask from you, because esports in general, let's be honest, it's a risk.
It is.
And I think even today with all the opportunities, I would say, that are in esports right now, or just let's say even content creators, content creation, streamers, all that stuff, that is still a considerable risky
For sure.
area to get into. So for you specifically, Wolf,
Yeah.
how was that? How did you approach that risk? Because you started this when you were like 19 or 20, right? So obviously at the same time, your family probably had something to say about that too.
Yeah, no, they do.
You know, and I think this is a shared sentiment in esports.
For sure.
Everybody has a story about this. So I want to hear yours. What was that risk like going into esports for you? And what did your family think?
The first is money, for sure. That financial, that's a problem. But then you have to remember, I haven't talked about it, so you can't remember. But you have to know, I was a mechanical engineering student.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to brag, but I think I was academically okay. Like I was a full scholar during my first year. Yeah. But
that's more than okay, buddy.
Yeah. But I think I'm on the right path, like academically wise. But then I got sick, which kind of sucks because I cannot physically make assignments, homeworks, because my hands will be swollen.
Yeah,
it's not like and also online classes were the thing.
They weren't a thing back
then.
So
you have to really be there.
Yeah.
Okay, so all that stuff, right? So I was on the right track, but then I got derailed because of my sickness. So the first time that I earned money from writing for esports, technically it wasn't a risk in general because I was earning anyways when I couldn't earn anything. But after a few months of doing it, when I was starting to get a little bit better, because maybe I have recovered, the medicines eventually kicked in. That was when my parents now starting to urge me to get back to studying and try to earn a living for myself, which is very true. So now the risk that I had to take back then was, do I go full esports or do I get back to school? I made my own decision back then because I was practically old back then. Like so I was sick like around 18, right? And then after 2 years, that's 20. You're basically
Did you say you're old at 20?
Yeah, I mean like old enough.
Okay.
Old enough to make your own decisions, basically.
Yeah.
And that was when the actual risk it's like that meme where you take two paths, whatever meme that
There's
is.
a fork in the road.
Yeah, the fork in the road, exactly. On the left is like academics, continue it because you can anyways.
Yep.
Right? It's just go professionally because you're doing you're earning anyways. And I took that route. But then I heard your podcasts, and it what really struck me was taking risks, but calculated risks. So I did take that path where esports, that's a thing. But then at that age, I already know that this is not gonna work just on its own. Like the thing that you love the most probably will not give you money until you reach a specific level, obviously. And even when I was writing and I was casting back then, I know that I'm not the best writer. There's someone else that can replace me anytime as a writer for esports. I just had a head start, basically. That's all. That's all my idea. Then that's also true with casting. I am part of the casting crew now, but eventually, I will be replaced. And then the money, if you're looking at it, it's like 500 pesos a day.
Back then.
Yeah, which is practically, nothing.
Yeah.
Especially with the amount of work. So I know that back then it was a risk, but you kind of know that, okay, if you just think like a mature person, if you calculate everything, you know that it's not gonna work. That's why what I did was to find another job. Yeah, that's basically it. Upwork, writing job, ghostwriting.
So you were you started doing freelancing writing.
Exactly.
This is what year? Like
2016.
2016. So
2016.
Was Upwork around that time?
It was.
Wow.
It was.
I just discovered it like 3 years ago when I did voiceover stuff. So
Upwork was around maybe 09.
Wow.
Yeah, 09, 2010. Yeah.
I heard it's way different now. Like
it's way different
from
now.
the start. And so you supplemented that journey, that risk that you took with extra income through freelancing.
Basically. I failed many times. I failed. There was even like this English tutor for Japanese. Failed it. Failed it maybe twice.
Okay.
So, and you have to take note. You can only apply like maybe twice a year or something like
Right.
that. So, most of my applications will be rejected, and some of it will be underpaid. But that's okay. Like, eventually I found a regular thing. As I don't know if that happened to you with VOs. Yeah.
Ah.
Not as intense as that.
Yeah, not as intense as that, but man, VOs, that was a whole nother experience
Yeah.
because that was my first I would say experience in the freelancing
Yeah.
world. And that's definitely took some time. And I guess that's where leading into next is failures, because you already mentioned it.
Yeah.
You kind of my last episode was about learning from the failure, because before, that's really how I took failure. Was I would be stuck in this kind of like mindset, like, oh crap, I have failed, I suck,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay here, like I'm gonna stay in the suck. I
Yeah.
didn't know how to look past that failure, and until I really got into my mid to even late 20s, and I started learning that lesson. And I think it's when you're younger, like in your you're going into your 20s, you're 19, let's say, or even 18, you feel like you're invincible. So like you don't even take these calculated risks anymore. You're just kind of like
head on
shooting the shot, man, and you're hoping that it works out.
Yeah.
But through experience, through failure, you start to take more calculated risks.
Exactly.
At least for you, when you started, you're like, hey, I might as well go freelance while I do this esports thing.
Maybe there's there's something inside me that kind of want to prove to my parents and my family that no, I can make this work. Yeah. So again, I was young and very energetic.
How do they feel about it? Like
when
they were against it.
They were,
because you went from engineering. What was that, engineering? Which kind of engineering?
Mechanical.
So you went from, hey, dad, mom, I'm going to be a mechanical engineer, to, hey, I'm going to commentate video games.
Exactly. The thing is, because during my first 2 years in college, well, the entirety of my college, I was living in a dormitory because I was studying in Mapua University. Now it was Mapua Institute of Technology. Back there was in Manila and Intramuros, which is like 3 hours away from from Binangon and Rizal, where I reside. So I've mostly lived on my own, right? So they only see me during the weekends. Then when I was trying to get back to school, that was when the fork in the road thing happened. I was like a semester in. Then I decided like, no, I can't do this. I want to do it on my own. So basically, in a way, it's kind of rebellious. Yeah. The way I did it. But I had to make sure that I show them something that at least I'm earning, at least, that, hey, this is the paycheck.
So you actually had to show them like proof.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not giving them money back.
Yeah.
Because obviously I'm not earning that much back then, but there's something. And
when did they fully accept what you were doing?
Good question.
Because it took mine a while, dude.
It took mine a while.
Shout out to my parents, man.
This is very funny, and it's a very Filipino thing. And I got accepted, and I saw it in their eyes when I appeared on TV.
That's so Filipino.
That was so Filipino, right? When I actually appeared on TV. Exactly. That's I saw it in their eyes, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that for? What was the?
I was actually in the news. There was a brief period, maybe a 6-month period, of 2018 going 2019, where Sports Center, this Sports Center from the US, actually tied up with TV5 in the Philippines, and they had the Sports Center or esports bit where it's like a 3-minute thing of the entire sports segment where it's just about esports. And I actually experienced being a newscaster during that time, like a 3-minute. I wrote the scripts, I delivered it.
Was this in combination also with like One Esports, or like
no? This was way before. This was 2018.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think from 2016 up until today, there's always been writing that's related to whatever I'm doing, because I did not study journalism whatsoever, but I kind of did it ever since. So I knew the thing.
So you're just naturally a
Naturally
writer.
a writer.
Naturally a
That's
writer.
why.
Got it.
Yeah. So I appeared on TV. The acceptance didn't happen like immediately, but I think after a month or 2 months of constantly appearing on TV, that's when they started like, okay. Because I kept on telling them like, hey, this is how a studio works. Hey, I saw this newscaster. I saw this actor. It's a studio. The lights are there. The teleprompters,
Right.
the cameras, directors, wardrobe, and everything, all that jazz. Then there was that day where I saw it in their eyes, like, okay, okay, my son is famous.
Yeah. Obviously,
Was-
now they're really proud of you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, they
And
are.
it's funny because that was like the same story I had.
Okay.
And
Okay. Tell me about it.
it's funny because, like, you know, me being half American, half Filipino, I grew up with both cultures.
Yeah.
And my parents both. So I went to school to be a teacher, and I was a teacher. You know, I talked about this on your
Yeah,
podcast. I was a teacher before, and going into esports and everything. So, and I come from also a family of either military or teachers. That's like the two,
Okay,
basically. And specifically, once I made that transition of, I'm not going to pursue teaching anymore. I'm going to go for this esports thing. Actually, before that, it was streaming. So that was even a little more risky.
Yeah.
You know,
for
trying to
sure.
be a successful streamer and make a living off that. They were against it. And I just told them, like, I'm going to do my best. And hopefully, like, I gave myself a time frame. That's where the calculated risk thing came from.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I was like, if I don't make it in this set amount of time, then I'll go back to teaching. That's one of
That's
the
a
great
good way.
things. Yeah, I mean, that's how I took it, as calculated. And that's why I think having, you know, not everybody needs a degree, but that was, for me, that was my fallback. Like, I still have my education degree. I can go teach, you know, if this doesn't work
sure.
out. But it was kind of the same thing where, especially on the Filipino side, you know, my mom was like, once she started to see, and obviously when I joined the MPL Philippines, it was much more different than when you started.
Yeah.
You know, it's much more developed, and like there was
Yeah.
obviously a lot more traction worldwide even, and for the league and all this. So once I got my first like league appearance just in the MPL Philippines, and then once I got my first international experience, like her and my dad were both like, wait, you're flying to Malaysia. This was MSC. They're like, you're flying to Malaysia to go commentate a video game?
That's the
And everything's paid for. I was like, yeah, and I'm going to get paid. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, you know, and then when they saw it, that was a big thing. And then, so that started to pop up, and they really were like, wow. And then I guess really one of the selling points specifically for my mom was, when people started recognizing me, like,
Oh, that's so cool.
you know, as Naisu, like
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my mom would literally just be like, wow, okay. So,
Yeah.
and we went all the way, dude. One time we went all the way to Baguio.
Oh, that's so cool.
And,
Okay.
and the people at this, like my parents, they just, they've always wanted to own a condo here in the Philippines. So they got one out in Baguio, and the people, we went to go visit the, you know, view the thing because it was done. The people were all MPL fans.
Oh, dude.
So even when we went to go in, the people that, you know,
man.
were running the office and showed us around, of course, they all knew who I was, and they all knew the MPL Philippines. And then I think that was really the selling point,
Yeah.
at least for my mom, like on the Filipino side. My dad's great. I mean, he has no clue what's going on in these video games, but he still puts it on, like, you know, he pulls up the YouTube or whatever.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And he'll like watch us
Yeah.
when we're outside the game.
Yeah.
But then he kind of zones out, you know, when we're in
Yeah,
the
for
game, which is completely fine. But
Yeah.
you know, and so it's a similar story, but
Yeah.
it took time because I loved teaching, and I know it's also a very honorable profession. I don't think teachers get paid enough, to be honest, anywhere around the world.
Oh, anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think especially in the US, they deal with a lot of yikes.
Yeah.
You know, but so interesting story there to kind of the similarities.
Yeah.
I got to ask you though, what would be your biggest failure then up to this point in your life?
Man, okay. That's a difficult one because I think just recently I've had a lot of failures, like at the start of 2024. Um. Okay. Maybe there was one during there will be moments where mini failures kind of stack up together, and then they're a big one, right?
Yep.
So that I think that happened back in 2020 actually, before the pandemic happened. Yeah.
I think everybody felt like
Yeah.
some form of failure.
Some form of failure, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because and this was end of 2019, so the pandemic isn't there yet. But basically, I lost about 2 jobs
Okay.
back then because yeah, I do multiple jobs because that's how you survive with esports before. Yeah.
Do you think that's still true today? Do you think people can be full on esports today?
Full on esports, yes. One job esports, I don't think so. But then I gotta tell you, it's all about just lifestyle, honestly.
That's true.
And the only reason why I do multiple jobs now is because
You like to eat good.
Yeah, I like to eat good, basically. Yeah. No, I'm getting old, so I need to build something for myself for the future. I want to retire early because of my condition. So I don't want to go until like 50 and still working. I want to retire at maybe 45,
Right.
Yeah, hopefully, or something like that. So going back, failure, right? So there was one time, end of 2019, where I kind of lost so much. And then the thing is, failure or, setbacks like these, they're like a sucker punch, You don't know it's going to happen. Especially because I thought that I was on an upward trajectory. There will be times in your career where you feel like you're invincible, like you're untouchable, that you're really on the right track, because you know that you're doing well. You know that you'll keep on practicing and you'll keep honing your craft, and you know that you make yourself healthy or whatsoever. So you kind of become overconfident about yourself. So I kind of made some, I don't know, maybe investments, like I want to rent this apartment, or I want to be here, or you already have a lifestyle that you kind of projected for your own. So you start on like getting maybe loans or something, like even just a simple loan for air conditioning or maybe for a refrigerator back then. So you thought that you can handle it, but then something happens, and then because that something happened, you kind of get emotional about it, which meant that after a while, because you were emotional, you fail on another thing.
Yeah, it's a chain
reaction, basically. And because I was inexperienced about this stuff and I thought that I was invincible, I thought I could handle it. But because I was trying to handle it, I make situations even worse. Right. So, usually, so that's what I felt like I failed myself, because it's supposed to be just a setback, but because I was emotional and because I was overconfident, it became a failure on my own because I wasn't able to really read the situation and adjust accordingly. Long story short, what happened was I lost a couple of jobs, and the thing with losing some of the jobs because you failed with your work is that the trust kind of people lose trust in you in a way.
Yeah. Did you lose it with yourself too?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And you started to be, like I said, very emotional about it. It's a chain reaction, and then you're down, and then fortunately I still have the vigor of a kid back then. So
we're still young, man.
Yeah, we're still young.
But
young. Back then in 2020, couple it with the fact that the pandemic kicked in, you're just crazy in the head,
Yeah.
It's just things are getting crazy. But because it was the pandemic, you had a time, you had a chance to kind of sit down and just absorb everything. And like I said, I had the vigor back then. I still want to bounce back. And then I thought of different ways. And fortunately, there are things that went my way, so I kind of rode that. But because of whatever happened in 2019, I told myself that I will not be in that position again. I have to really focus on stuff.
That was your learning opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
2019 to 2020, that was the time that you felt like maybe it was your biggest failure moments, leading things up.
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah, there was another in just recently, like back in...
2023?
Just December of 2023. Yeah.
Okay.
November, when everything really went down, and
Yeah.
and like I said, it's like back in 2020, I bounced back big time.
Right.
Again, you feel confident and everything. But 2023, the problem is I did not watch my health enough, and I did not watch my relationship with my family and my ex back then,
Mm-hmm.
and myself.
And yourself,
So
yeah.
because
So that was a chain reaction.
it was a chain reaction for sure. Because the thing is, in 2023, because of the success that I've gotten in the entire 2022, 23 was more of me reaping the benefits, but at the same time, like I was just trying to get on stuff. Like, okay, opportunities, I'm gonna grab it.
So you kind of got like a little workaholic.
Yeah,
basically.
I gotta say,
I've been there, man.
Yep.
I know how hard that is. I know you like, especially when you start to have success and
Yeah.
you start to earn, or let's say you're juggling a lot of jobs, and then you in that process you just juggle so much that you kind of forget to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
You forget to take care of the people around you.
Yeah.
And it affects
Yep.
affects a lot of things.
It's because you get away with stuff. You
Yeah.
know? For example, when you juggle multiple jobs, multiple tasks, I mean, you kind of get away with it eventually, just because of the skills that you've honed along the way, which what literally was what happened with me. Like, I was able to finish them all, but then because I was really stressing my body so much,
Yeah.
and I was spending a lot of time with it, obviously, because you have to spend time just to get through it. You sacrifice sleep, you sacrifice like your me time, and also the time with your partner.
Yep.
You don't know that you've already tarnished that those relationships, and obviously the body, especially when you're up with adrenaline, you don't feel pain, but then the crash is like massive,
especially when you already have like a health thing going on for years.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned, back all the way when you were younger,
Yeah.
you were wrongly diagnosed, and then you
Yeah.
end up with, what you have. And it's,
Yeah.
if you don't keep track of it, you're lost in the work.
Yeah.
Not only do you have typical burnout, but like your body is affected as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, for example, when it comes to lupus, now that I have the money to buy healthy food, that's what I keep on doing. I thought that it will be enough, and I think because I was in this illusion that I'm just sitting down anyways.
Right.
Like, majority of what I'm doing is just at home, and I can finish it. I'm just using my brain. That's the illusion. Like, you would think that you're not stressing your body with the condition that I have, just because you're sitting down.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm doing stretches anyways. I'm doing all that stuff, like standing up, drinking enough water, but you don't feel the actual effects of it until that big crash.
Do you feel like you manage it better now? Like, or is it still? I'm actually surprised you didn't say that when I asked you that this was your biggest challenge, like living with lupus, basically.
Maybe because maybe because I've been doing it for many years now, that it becomes natural to me. That, and also, like, I don't wanna use it.
You don't want to use it as like an excuse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, but then, yeah, it was a challenge in a way, but along the way you learn how to manage it.
Yeah.
In a way, and there's a lot of, I guess, support from other people that I get, which I'm always thankful about. And also, like, because I always get pissed when some people are saying, like, imagine if you like, they always ask the question, do you think that you'll be in this spot that you are right now if you don't have lupus? Something like that. It's they're like, they tell me, like,
in what way? Like, are they
like, if you don't have lupus, if you're just a normal guy, you're probably not this successfmore.
Oh, really?
Something like that.
Okay.
But they don't mean it. But
Yeah,
they ask that.
They ask that
in a way
along
but
the line.
It's more impactful in Tagalog. But yeah,
Say it in Tagalog.
something like, siguro kung wala kang sakit, iba yung naabot mo, parang ganun.
Okay, yeah.
Which kind of sucks because I would drop everything that I have right now just to be well,
Just to be like not have lupus.
Yeah, dude. I can be like, I would choose being a very normal, mediocre person. Just
would you?
Dude. Yeah, I know.
I mean, no, I'm asking that literally because you've learned to manage it, and I mean, let's be honest, like you have so much successes, Wolf, in your life.
Yeah.
So it's like, at this point, would you drop everything, or would you just continue to live the way you have been doing? I guess that's another fork in the road kind of thing,
So 100%, like I will not drop. I guess I can say this because I'm already in this spot.
Yeah.
Where everything's going relatively well for me career wise. That's why, I would not have it any other way, something like that. But at the same time, like having a chronic disease.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's tough because it's like I always envision this like a gacha every day. Like every day when you wake up, what am I gonna get today? There's a 5% chance that there's no pain. 70% chance that your feet will be in pain. 20% chance that it will be your hands, whatever.
Yep.
And it's always a gacha every day you wake up. Yeah. So I'm laughing about it now, but it's really tough, especially for all the people with lupus. And by the way, May is going to be like Lupus Awareness Month.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so
I actually, to be honest, until I met you, I did not know what lupus was.
Yeah.
I did not like being able to work with you and then become friends and everything. Like I then started to try to understand it because obviously when I found out the first time that we casted together and you were actually having
really?
an effect. Yeah. Like I remember your foot was swelling. Yeah. You could barely, really concentrate on what you're doing. Like you have to understand, guys, that, sometimes this stuff affects him mid broadcast or mid work and he still does it. Like he still puts his best foot forward. And it's crazy sometimes because obviously, like you mentioned earlier, when you're not taking care of yourself, your health, sometimes it flares up more.
Exactly.
And that's why knowing kind of like what has happened here in the past year or so, or even just months, and then the route you're on now, the path you're on now, where it's like, okay, you've experienced these risks, you've had these challenges in your life. Lupus is a lifelong challenge.
It is.
And now, in a way, I feel like your mindset has shifted a little bit because we've talked about this a bit, whereas like now you're trying to heal. Like,
yes, exactly.
Everybody has a different definition or experience with healing. Mm-hmm. I've surely had my own, which I'll talk more about in future episodes. Yeah. But for you specifically, I want to go to you here. Like, what kind of healing have you had to do that you're currently on right now?
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing, right? Okay, let's just be blunt about it. I've been through a breakup, and this is my first breakup ever. Because my ex for 4 years and 11 months, our relationship was 4 years and 11 months. That was my first relationship ever. So I don't know how to freaking handle heartbreak.
Yeah, that's...
So I did a lot of bad stuff, like the typical drinking, you know.
You learn as you go.
You learn as you go, basically. So this was my first heartbreak. I didn't know what to do. Went into these dating apps and was sorely disappointed.
Yeah, the dating scene right now, man.
Yeah. So I did stuff like that, but fortunately, I had you. Yeah, I had to talk to you. I had to talk to some of my other friends like Mara and Aislinn and other friends out there that's outside of esports. Yeah, and I just gathered their stories and took what I can get. So it was obviously it was dreadful first 2 months, and I was making so many mistakes. Then just recently, because of what I learned from you and from my other friends, this healing process, eventually I found out that it really just takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of like self-awareness and self-care. And that's what I am doing now. It's all about self-care. I let go of the constant alcohol intoxication. Eating healthy now.
Hey, it was good to split that bottle though. Like,
it was.
and talk about life.
Sure. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gymming now.
Yeah, dude.
Which you used to do before.
I used to do before, yeah. So I did it before the pandemic actually, because my doctor back then when I was diagnosed recommended that I go to the gym.
Yeah.
But don't overdo it, as usual. So now back in January, what I did was for my own healing and self-care, went to the gym, tried to eat healthy as much as possible, for as much as I can, then reorganize that. I actually have a vlog about decluttering,
Yeah, yeah.
because
I
it
saw
was
that.
actually very
It was very cluttery.
Yeah, it was very cluttery, but it was also very therapeutic to do it, and there's a lot of like self-awareness that happens to it. So that's what I'm doing right now. Weird, for the past two weeks before this podcast happened, I had a thing with my wisdom tooth, and then I had
That's right.
stomach flu. So that happens.
You've been through it.
Basically, what I was trying to gain, I was trying to gain a lot ever since January. I just lost it for the past week, which is annoying. But at the same time, I've had less flares.
Yeah,
recently,
I remember.
which is great, right? So there's definitely a lot of improvement with my health, and I'm generally happier now. One thing though that healing brought back to me was my hobbies, And
Yeah.
the thing is, because we're working with esports, like gaming is no longer
Gaming is no longer a hobby.
Yeah, right. Maybe the best that you can have with gaming as a hobby is play other games, but at the same time you kind of think, well, probably I don't have time for it.
It's so funny, because most people think like if you work in esports, you're just gaming all the time. But it's funny because we work in esports, the last thing we want to do when we have free time is play games.
Yeah. So yeah, with my hobby, that's why I
What is
got
that?
the
Is that the guitar?
The
Yeah, the
guitar
guitar.
for sure. 2 guitars.
The
jamming. And I was just posting about you. If you have been following me ever since January, I was just posting a lot of stuff. And there's a funny meme where that a guy is lonely when he posts a story about him playing a guitar, which is
that
kind of true. But at the same time, no, I just wanted to. I post stuff because you can archive it, and I want to look back at my improvements basically.
Yeah.
So because I kept on posting about the guitar and stuff, a few weeks ago, or maybe just a week ago, a friend of mine randomly messages me, and he basically said like, I'm very happy that it goes along the lines of like, we're just talking about you because it makes us happy that you're revisiting your hobbies.
Yeah.
And you look happy that you're doing these hobbies and that you're not working all the time, because I think they have observed that in the past year or so I've just been all about work.
You were a workaholic, man.
Yeah.
I was too. Like I went through that phase as well, so
Yeah.
I completely get it. And
Yeah.
So do you think that this, like the guitar, the jamming, even by yourself solo, is that healing? Is that therapeutic for you?
Absolutely, because it's something that I don't earn from.
Yeah, you
and
just
I will
do it.
Never earn from. There's no validation. Like for sure, people will say that you're good, but it's not about being good.
Yeah.
Playing the guitar for me, it's not about being good. It's like, because it's very athletic actually. Like if you think about it, like you have to do these drills.
Yep.
For you to be good at it. You have to memorize all this stuff, but at the same time, there's a lot of art in it. Like a lot of feeling in it. So there's always that challenge of me improving like every day. Like at any given point, I always think like, hey, what time can I squeeze in 30 minutes today just to play the guitar, because I really need to nail this down. Right now, as we are speaking, I have to learn a song because we have a jamming session that we scheduled a month ago.
Okay.
So that's very exciting. And then I felt like, okay, this week this has to be what I learned or something like that. So it's very like progressive.
Yeah,
in
it's
a way.
progressive. It's funny. It's like progressive overload in the gym.
Exactly. It's
Like,
like
it's like the
progressive
same
overload in the
thing.
gym. It's the same thing. That's the thing. And like I said, I don't earn anything
Yeah.
from it apart from
Your own
slice of
self.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like self fulfillment, because like
Exactly.
it makes you happy,
So
right?
it makes me happy, and I don't need validation from anyone.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny because like when you get lost in the work hustle, or especially when you're a workaholic, guys, you get so lost in that and let's say you are in a relationship.
Yeah.
Like after you're done working, you spend time in the relationship. And not to say that obviously if you're in a healthy, loving relationship, that's a great time. But it's also different if you have your own hobby.
Exactly.
Like having your own,
call your own.
that you can call your own, that you only do, that is something that really brings you joy.
Yeah.
I think, and a lot of people have a tendency when they are in a relationship or they're swamped with the work, they take all their hobbies and just throw them out the window.
Exactly.
And that's something that we should not do, because you should maintain your hobbies because that's part of your identity, right? And the last thing as we kind of wrap things up here, I know you have your own podcast.
Yeah.
This started out as a hobby as well.
Exactly.
Right? And, but obviously now you're earning. And I'm so proud of the hey, that's all you, man.
A funny story though, because I didn't know how to monetize it until this guy, this guy already scolded me from not starting.
Guys, we're talking about months and months that this guy had thousands and thousands of views and decided that he wasn't going to finish the monetization stuff. Like he already started, but he's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know if you got lazy or what, but you're just like, yeah, I didn't finish it. I was like, dude, you're already releasing your podcast. They're already amazing. You're already getting a ton of views. You're not monetizing any of that. And again, it's not that you went into podcasting because you're like, I want to make money from this. To be honest, most people do not get into podcasting because they want to make money out of this. This is not something that you do with the intention of, I want to make money podcasting. Yeah. Because it is very hard to make money from podcasting.
It is.
And especially now for you, it started as a hobby. Yeah. It's grown very successful. What is the name of the podcast?
Ocho Gabang Podcast, or 8G Podcast.
8G Podcast. That's right. And you primarily focus on what?
For now, MLBB personalities. But I when I started out, I really wanted to be about like esports personalities in general, like Dota 2, Valorant. It's just that I had more connections with MLBB, so it's easier. Because when I started with the podcast, it's I cannot pay talents, Yeah, you were episode 2, and I only like give you coffee or something.
Hey man, I gave you coffee.
That's true. All true. Yeah, but okay. In a way, it's true. It was a hobby back then, because when I started driving around Manila, because it's just traffic everywhere. Yeah. And because I live in Binangon and Rizal, which generally means that if I want to get into a place, it will take at least 1 hour. Right. So 2 hours. 1 or 2 hours to get into to places to work, and eventually you're gonna run out of music. Yeah, right? Yeah. So if and then something I try to, because I listen to podcasts anyways. I thought maybe if I listen to podcasts while driving, maybe I'm more entertained, and at the same time I learn something. Yeah. And then it dawned on me like, hey, I consume this stuff. Why don't I make it? Yeah, and I'm a firm believer of, if you want to make content, it has to be something that you consume as well. Right. You have to enjoy the content. You have to be the first fan of your content, basically. Yeah. So I don't do vlogs because I don't watch as much vlogs. Sometimes I'm required to do vlogs, so I do it. But podcasts are very natural to me. Yeah. 100%. So it was a risk because I know that I had to spend first. I accepted that fact. Yes. So I got the equipment. Oh man, they're nasty. You for sure know this. And that's the main hurdle of people who wanted to start the podcast, because I get it. People quality is a bottleneck, Yeah. And sometimes it stops you from especially nowadays. But then if you look back at my first setup, it was not as good as the most recent one for sure. And I'm going to say, up until now, it's not the best, It's not like the official podcast levels. But it's definitely improved though. Definitely improved. It improved along the way.
And you could only that's something that I always try to do is like, you can't compare yourself against others. Exactly. Right? Like that's your project, that's your hobby, that's your thing. You will improve it as you go. Exactly. And you've 100% done that.
Oh, thank you. And that's what's that? Comparison is the enemy of whatever. There's a quote about that.
Something like comparison is it the enemy of happiness or something?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So We are going to wrap this up here, Wolf.
Right.
It's been great to have you on
Oh, thank you,
the
dude.
first guest for the Built Diff podcast.
All
So
right.
I'm going to go ahead and end with this. I'm going to ask you exactly, what does being built diff mean to you, and how, like, if you could pick one thing, how are you built diff?
Whew. Wow. Okay. I'm not gonna use the Lupus card because of this, but I think for me, I'm a student of life, basically. That's why I think I'm built diff, because I always try to learn something from everything that I encounter, I
Yeah.
guess. So if I encounter, for example, podcasting, I'm a student in a way that I research about podcasting. When I get interested in something, I really just, really dive into that stuff. Like, for example, when I learned about casting in Dota 2 back then in 2013, right? Immediately, multiple tabs on my browser about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess what made me build Diff is that factor. It's almost borderline obsession about stuff,
Yeah.
but it's really just I'm a student of life in general, and everything that I get interested in and everything I encounter, I try to learn something from it. I think you probably have noticed when we talk, I always like ask you, hey, for example, when you opened up something about football, I ask you about football.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that I try to learn stuff about everything I encounter.
100%, man. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you being the first guest
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you for having the time to come here and everything.
Yes, sir.
And I know later we have the Filipino Esports Awards to go to. So where can people that are listening to this or watching this, where can they find you?
Yeah. MPL Philippines in English and in Tagalog broadcast. You can really you that's my regular thing, I would say. Sometimes I'm part of VCT broadcasts, but I guess the one thing that I really want to promote is the YouTube channel, and especially the podcast. I'm doing I was inspired by your solo podcast, by the Sucast.
I appreciate it, man.
That's why I did my AG thoughts. That's
I know, love it.
Yep. Thank you. And then regular podcast. I think once every week I publish a full length podcast. The biggest challenge now is subtitling, because I really want to reach the international scene, but
you gotta get that stuff on Spotify, man.
Slowly, yeah. So yeah. No, it's ready. It's ready. Yeah, but
it's ready.
Yeah, it's ready. So yeah, watch out for that.
Okay. Well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Build Diff podcast. Thank you for joining us, listening or watching, and don't forget to rate the show as well. That helps us drive it out there. So let us know, answer the questions if you guys have any questions for the Q&A, again, moving forward. But until then, we'll see you guys in the next episode.